Well, everybody, and welcome back to D-Ray Shop. Well, today, as you can see, Randy and I have a Sportsman 800 up on the lift. It's a 2012 model. And you can also see we've got the engine opened up on it. Now, what we got going on with this machine is it has excessive oil pressure. It's due to a stuck oil pressure relief valve. Now, this is a very common problem that we see, not necessarily with the Sportsmans, but any of the Polaris family of products from the Rangers, the Sportsmans, Razors, things like that, that use this family of 800 twin-cylinder engine. Basically what's happened is you can have one of two scenarios. Either the pressure relief valve will stick closed and you will have excessively high oil pressure. What this machine here is actually doing is when you have cold engine oil in it started up, if you rev the engine up, the oil pressure gets so high that it actually literally blows the O-ring out of the bottom of the oil filter. Another circumstance that I've seen with them is I had a machine in here one day that it wouldn't blow the bottom off the oil filter, but the oil pressure would get so high that it would literally overpump the lifters and it would shut the engine down because it was literally holding the valves open. Another situation that you can have, and this is the most common one, the oil pressure relief valve can actually stick open. And when this happens, it actually drops your oil pressure to the point that it can no longer supply sufficient oil pressure to the plain bearings and the connecting rods, and it just literally pounds the rod bearings out of them and starts knocking and just destroys the engine. Our part that's in question is the actual plunger for the oil pressure relief valve itself. It's a little cylindrical piece of steel. It's about 8 millimeters in diameter and it's approximately 16 millimeters long. And this is what gets hung up in the engine and causes our problems with our oil pressure. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you where this valve is located, how to extract this out without destroying the cases, and I'm going to show you how we're going to fix this thing so we can put it back in operation. So let's just dive right in and get started. All right, so we've taken the right side of the engine off here. We've got the floorboard out of the way, the water pump cover and impeller, the outer crankcase cover that has your flywheel and your stator, your starter drive and gears. Then we took the inner crankcase cover out, which gained us access to the balancer gear, the camshaft gear, and the oil pump itself. So we had to take all these items out of the way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to show you a little more detail of where the oil pressure relief valve actually goes into the engine. And you can see right there we've got this little protrusion on the crankcase right here. That's where the plunger drops in, followed by the spring, and then the retaining bolt that holds that all in place. Now I'm going to zoom back here just a little bit. I'm going to show you a little more detail of where the oil pump and the passages are. What you've got here is this is going to be your high pressure outlet side. This is going to be the inlet side. Then what you have here, this is where the oil pressure relief valve itself goes. So what happens is when your oil pressure goes up, the pressure from the output side, there's a passage right here that goes up to the pressure relief valve. If the pressure is too high, it forces the valve upward, which exposes this port here. Then your excess pressure just goes back to the return side of the pump. Now something you really can't see from this shot, there's a small port just above this, which allows any oil pressure that goes past the valve itself to bleed back into the crankcase. That keeps it from causing a hydraulic lock on top of the pressure relief valve to keep it from being able to go up and down. So this is the area we're going to concentrate right here. I'm going to show you how to access that pressure relief valve if it's stuck, and how to get it out of there, and then how we're going to repair it. What I did is I start out with a series of different size Allen wrenches. Start out with a small one, and then as I move the pressure relief valve further up in the port, the tool bottoms out, so I'll go to the next size larger because it's a little bit longer, okay? But basically, what I did is you can't see the port where it's actually at, so I'm going to show you where it's located. You take your Allen wrench, you put it in the outlet port, and you rotate it around, and then you fall into the port where the actual pressure relief valve is. Now normally if the valve was in place, you'd feel it right about there. So what we want to do is we want to force the Allen wrench up that way so that it forces the pressure relief valve up in the bore to the point where it turns loose and you can extract it out with a magnet, or you can blow it out with an air gun. So what I'm going to do to help protect these cases, you really don't want to ding any of this stuff up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wrench that just fits in that port, right there. Next, I'll take a second Allen wrench and I'm going to force it between the wrench and the Allen wrench and pry down on it, and you can see it's kind of moving that Allen wrench further up in the bore. And once that Allen wrench bottoms out, then I'll just extract it and I'll replace it with a slightly larger Allen wrench that's a little bit longer. And that way we can force that on up into the bore to the point that it releases, and then we can extract it and get it out. Then we'll clean all this up and I'll show you how we're going to replace this valve. Here's another shot of our part that's given us our problem. This is our oil pressure relief valve plunger. And I've got all the associated parts that goes with it. This is your pressure regulator spring, and then this is the bolt that holds all of it into the case. Now if we take this plunger and measure it, you see it's got a diameter of roughly 7.99 millimeters, might as well say 8 millimeters. Lengthwise, it's just shy of 16 millimeters, 15.91 millimeters. And if you actually hold this thing just right, you can actually see the scuffing on the sides of it there, where foreign materials got in there and wedged it in the case and stuck it. Now one of the reasons why this does this is since you have the entire surface area on the sides of this thing is contacting the case. So it's a lot more surface area there and a lot more likelihood that something can get in it and wedge it. So what we're going to do to repair that is this. We're going to use 2 ball bearings. Now these ball bearings, they are 7.91 millimeters, just shy of 8 millimeters. So that means if you take a pair of them, measure them end to end, it's just shy of 16 millimeters. So they're roughly the same length as our original pressure relief valve. And then all of our other components will work with it. One of the good things is with these ball bearings, since they're round, they have a very, very small area that's going to contact the case. So that means you have a lot less likelihood of a piece of foreign material getting in there and damaging those. Now, you can get these at just about anywhere. They're actually considered a 5/16 ball bearing. Now these I actually got through my local Kawasaki dealer. Kawasaki does use just individual ball bearings in certain applications. Part number on this one is 600A1000. Yeah. But like I said, any place that you can get just individual loose ball bearings, 5/16 is the proper size to use with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to install all this back into the case, then reassemble the right side of the engine crankcase. We'll hook us up an oil pressure gauge. When we start the engine, we'll test our oil pressure and make sure this is all working properly. Alright, we're going to reinstall our 2-piece bearing bypass valve. Randy's on the other side there and he's going to drop those in that bore. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here and we're going to watch and see if we can see those ball bearings when they drop into the port. Alright, put them in there, Randy. Yep, there was number 1. Number 2, yep, you can see it. So you can see the very top of it there in the bypass port. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in there with an Allen wrench and see if I can make sure that those balls are moving freely within the bore. And then if so, then we'll go ahead and drop the spring and the bolt in and tighten all that up and start putting this side back together. I'm going to reach in here with my Allen wrench and get it back in that port. And if you'll watch right here is where you're going to see those balls moving up and down. Yep. So those are moving freely in that port there, so that's going to work perfect. So we'll go ahead and start buttoning this thing back up. Well, we've got all of our gears back in place now, and this is your balancer shaft, this is your camshaft gear, and of course we've got the oil pump back in place. I just wanted to kind of show you, when you put all this back together, you want to be sure and pay special attention to your timing marks. You got your timing marks here that goes from the crankshaft to the balancer, and then at the same time it's kind of hard to see it because the washer covers up part of it, but you got another mark right here on the balancer gear that times with the gear on the camshaft. So be sure you got all that timed up right, and we're going to carry on and put the rest of this back together. Okay, Randy's got everything back together now. So we're going to start this thing up and see what our oil pressure does. He's got the oil pressure gauge hooked up. All right, fire that rascal up and let's see what she does. Okay, rev it up just a little bit. All right. Okay, you see it goes almost up to 50, then it drops off as you rev it, and what that's doing, that oil pressure relief valve is opening, so that's limiting our oil pressure. Now the engine is still cold. After it warms up, the spec on the oil pressure is supposed to be a little less than, it's like 36 to 39 psi at 5,000 RPM. But we can tell that the pressure relief valve is opening because Randy, flip that throttle again and we'll watch it. See it dip right there? That means that pressure relief valve is opening, so we know we got our problem licked. All right, that's good. All right, that's going to wrap up our Polaris Sportsman 800 stuck oil pressure relief valve fix. It wasn't too hard to do. The hardest part is going to be getting that old dowel out of the cases without damaging it. So just be careful, take your time with it. Once you get it out, the rest of it's pretty easy to do. And as always, appreciate y'all coming by D-Ray Shop. Swing by again some other time. You never know what we're liable to be working on next. Be sure to drop some comments in the comment section below. As always, appreciate y'all coming by. Y'all have a good one. We'll catch y'all next time around. There's a problem with the oil pressure.
And that's how peanut butter's made.